welcome to the Grafana and Friends event in Stockholm. I guess you already know the date, so I don't have to spell it out. Thanks to 0+X for organizing events. Thank you. I'm Mustafa, together with Mariel and Ima from Spain, Mariel from Uppsala, and my lovely colleague from Uppsala. We are going to have a good meetup and talk about this thing. So, I guess, we're all grown-ups, but if you see something, say something. Code of conduct. Yada. Else? I just already thanked you, so I don't have to.
Right. So from myself and the team at 0+X, very warm welcome to the Grafana and Friends meetup. A big thanks to Ima and Grafana Stockholm, as Mustafa said, for supporting this initiative. My name is Marco. As next to Mustafa, I was standing. I'm a talent and consultant manager in the company here. To tell you a bit about 0+X, we've been on the market for quite a few years now and have a strong legacy. And from our team, which consists of people, software engineers from all around the world, we managed to work with big companies in the market, but also mid-sized, smaller ones, some notable names. I would say it's definitely Apple, Spotify, Klarna, Visa, PayPal, big gaming studios like DICE, Mojang, and definitely my recommendation, if you have some initiative like this one with Grafana for a meetup or some smaller tech talk, we do some mentorships as well and also have some open positions. So reach out to us on LinkedIn. We are always happy to meet new people and discuss ideas. In terms of the bit technicality, so my colleague Ben, who is in charge of organizing all this, thank you, Ben. He's going to record for our internal archive mostly, and I'm going to take some photos. So if you're not feeling comfortable, just let me know so I'm aware during the evening. With that being said, so going to the actual program, tonight we have two really interesting talks. Our Hamed will talk about real-time Kafka visualization in Grafana. It's the plugin he worked on, which simplifies the visualizations without using any intermediate storage or some external services. And then Tobias brought his piano with him, at least a MIDI version. So music and data streaming, you will see some very interesting experiment there. So yeah, of course, afterwards, I'm looking forward to meeting you better at the food and drinks mingle time. So yeah, to leave the floor to Hamed, I wish you a nice and enjoyable evening, and thank you.
Glad to have you here. This is the presentation for having real-time visualization with Kafka Data Source plugin. And in this presentation, first, of course, you're going to get more acquainted with me, and then the journey that I had for developing plugins for Grafana. And then we were looking to the Kafka plugin development, its architecture, and of course, how it works, how it can help the users of Grafana who are willing to have data of Kafka into Grafana. And then finally, the future works that we have in mind for this plugin. So I'm Hamed. I started my career as a data scientist. I was mainly working on NLP tasks and NLP modules for social media monitoring. Then I gradually were into transition into data engineering. So I'm a data engineer at 0+X. Previously, about 2 or 3 years, I worked as a Snapp. Snapp is a super application and ride-hailing company, just something like Uber in the Middle East, which is one of the biggest companies in Middle East. And so, of course, in my spare time, I would develop open source projects for Grafana or Kubernetes. So let's see about the journey. So first, we will talk about the plugins of Grafana. So Grafana has different kind of plugins. One sort of plugins is the panel plugins. So the panel plugins are the plugins that are mainly in the front end. So you will have to work with TypeScript if you want to develop such plugins. And if you have seen time series, gauges, pie charts, donut chart, all those charts, those are actually the panel plugins. And we have, of course, a bunch of developers that are working on these kind of plugins. The other kind of plugin is data source plugins. So data source plugins are the kind of plugins that besides front end, which is, of course, TypeScript, they have backend too, which is Golang. So these kind of plugins are the main layer that Grafana uses for making connection to databases or different technologies. So for example, Prometheus, Snowflake, Elasticsearch, MongoDB, all these actual tools that you have utilizing Grafana, they are using data source plugins that might be developed by Grafana Labs itself or by the organization or by the community. And the third kind of plugin is the app plugin. So the app plugin is something more extensive that actually you can use maybe than other nested plugins, and you can have more actually operability and more actually you can have more uses for these kind of plugins. And if I can mention some sort of these plugins is Kubernetes app plugin, Loki app plugin, Redis app plugin. And the good news in these plugins is that even you can use other backends in other languages. And one of them actually I can mention is Grafana on-call, which the main backend is in Python. And I started my first plugin which I developed back in 2021, and it was the Node Graph panel plugin. So the thing was that Grafana had released the panel plugin for Node Graph that you could have graphs and show graph in the Grafana, and that was really amazing. But the problem was that there was no data source, open source data source for this kind of plugin that you could show your own graphs there. So the only plugin that was there was X-Ray plugin in AWS, which was around that time. It wasn't open source. It was an enterprise. So what I did, I was going to develop some sort of data source plugin to show these things. This was my actual first plugin. And this is the journey that if someone who wants to develop a plugin for Grafana can take. So first, you can detect a problem. And by problem, I mean any lack of support for some sort of data source, or maybe an issue that you see in all of these plugins. And then you can research if there is any work already done on those plugins or anyone who has actually developed these some sort of plugins. Then you can choose the type of plugin that is a better suit, if it's a panel plugin, if it's a data source or app, and then you can start developing. And of course, Grafana has very, very rich documentation for you to develop those. And of course, a rich community that you can reach them out through Slack or Grafana forums. And you can submit your plugin for Grafana to Grafana for review and promote it by announcing in Grafana, Slack, forums, Twitter, or anything else like LinkedIn. Okay, so let's go into Kafka plugin development. So first of all, what is Apache Kafka? And for those who have not worked with or are not familiar with Apache Kafka is a distributed, fault-tolerant, scalable pub/sub message broker system. And the key feature is that you can use it as a fault-tolerant and high-throughput system for event-driven applications or architectures. So it's like a broker, and its alternatives are, of course, something like NATS, like RabbitMQ or ActiveMQ. These are actually its main alternatives, but extensively it is utilized for high throughput and scalable applications in enterprise systems. And the architecture is that it have producers, the brokers itself, consumers, and before version, actually, I guess it was version 3, you had to use Zookeeper, but now you don't have to use Zookeeper at all, and you can use Kafka by itself. So here is a sample that you can see how Kafka is working. So if this is a Kafka broker, the producers would produce messages on different partitions of a topic. So Grafana is using this partitioning thing to put the messages with the same actually key or ID on the same partition. And this is one of the cool things that actually Kafka supports. And consumers actually would consume these messages using the pool mechanism. So each consumer, if you have multiple consumers in a consumer group, thanks to the partitioning, you can actually scale out the thing in Kafka. So the more your project is getting bigger, the bigger your project is getting, the more partitions you can use, and you can simply scale out the number of consumers for that project. And if one of the consumers actually is being in an outage, so the other consumers that can take that responsibility. And this is this is one of the things that makes Kafka fault tolerant. And if you have multiple consumer groups, for example, multiple services, so you can use multiple consumer group IDs, each one will get its own actually message by itself. And this is, again, one of the other things that you can use in Kafka. Okay, this is for getting more familiar with Kafka. And the short story for me was that the situation was that you have Kafka cluster and you can have Kafka metrics into Grafana using, thanks to the Prometheus metrics. So for example, you could have metadata, how many topics I have, and number of brokers in the cluster, how many producers, how many consumers, if the consumer is up or down. These were the things that you had, but you couldn't have the messages in the Kafka into Grafana. You couldn't see those messages into Grafana. So this was actually the problem that we were facing. So I contacted Grafana guys, which back in the days, there was a guy who was Marcus Olsen, and he really helped me to gather some sort of idea, to reach an idea, and then I started developing it, and it resulted in this plugin, Kafka Data Source plugin. So the way that it works is very simple. I will show you now as a demo. So you will actually enter the Kafka URL, and you will configure its mechanism, SaaS mechanism, user, anything you want. And then you can actually see the actual messages that are coming through that topic into Grafana. And you can see the messages there. I'll show you soon. So the features that now this plugin has, it's that you can have real-time monitoring of Kafka topics. So it's using streaming. So most of the plugins that Grafana are using is using some sort of query. So it's a query like a batch thing. But using streaming, you can have something, the messages coming into Grafana in live. And you can query all or specific partitions. You can have autocomplete for topic names, because most of the times we have too many topic names into your Kafka. You have flexible offset options like latest, earliest, or last end messages. Timestamp modes, you can choose if you want the Kafka event time or dashboard receive time. And we have advanced JSON support. So no matter if your message is in JSON in flat, nested, arrays, or mixed type, it will support it. And recently we have, of course, added the Avro support, and we are going to add a protobuf support, of course. And it supports Kafka authentication, SaaS and encryption, SSL TLS, MTLS, plain text, and Scrum. So this is one of the case studies that you can see that we have sources, multiple data coming through memory load, CPU load, anything, any data coming into Grafana, into Kafka, and Grafana server which has the plugin can stream that data, and you can visualize it into your browser, of course. And you can use the client-side transformation of Grafana to do any kind of transformation on that data, filtering anything that Grafana supports, of course, which is really, really rich. And another case studies like, for example, you have the database and you have CDC, change data capture. Your data from database is coming into Kafka. You have different transformations, and you can have streams of data into your Grafana. And of course, there are multiple things there, Kafka Connect, having that Kafka into, for example, ClickHouse. So one of the things that you can have, having that data into Grafana, and even in the future, as I'm going to talk about, which you can set alert on those data too. So to see if something has been going wrong there. So, and the future works actually for this plugin is that supporting more complex formats. Of course, we have now streaming. We are going to support data query too, alerting. So you can set alerts on your data. So of course, I know that many teams using Grafana, they are using the Grafana Alert Manager, or maybe they are using the Prometheus Alert Manager, and or maybe using Grafana On-Call Alert Manager. And you can use that data source plugin alerting to set alerts on your Kafka. And of course, adding support for Avro, protobuf, and support for other authentication methods like Kerberos or OAuth Bearer. Okay, so let's see a demo here. I'm going to first show you, so consider this, that I'm going to produce messages into one topic. So I have a topic here, for example, JSON topic. So I have a JSON topic. I'm going to produce some nested shape JSON for this topic. And if I go to see the data of this topic, first I'm going to show you how this data is working. So I'm going here. You should go to your data sources. And here is your Kafka plugin that you can choose and add it as a data source. And there you can see that you can enter your bootstrap servers, URLs of your Kafka, which would be multiple separated by comma. Your client ID if needed. You can choose any plain text, SSL plain text, SAS SSL. So for example, if you're using SAS SSL, you can choose the mechanism. If it's plain, it's SHA 256 or 512. You can choose the TLS settings and of course some advanced settings like log level or heartbeat timeout. Okay, so this broker that I'm using, it's in plain text, so it's simple. So you can see that if it's working, so yes, it is, but the Grafana actually is correctly connected to the broker. And then I'm gonna go here into Explore, and I want to enter the name of my topic. So it was JSON, and this is the autocomplete that shows you the topic. And you can fetch, you can see the partitions. So you can choose any partition here or all partitions. You can choose the offset if it's latest, last n messages, or earliest, and of course the timestamp mode. And you can see the data coming here. And the good thing is that we are going to have all this data with a dot schema. So if you see the actual data is something like this. So if I go through JSON test, if you see, so actual data is something like this, a nested JSON. So this nested JSON actually is completely flattened through a dot mechanism into this, and you can have it here. So I'm gonna now show you some a very simple dashboard. Consider it as I have a dashboard already, created dashboard. So I'm going to send those messages into a topic called test. And I've already defined a dashboard into Grafana. So consider that there are a bunch of messages there in Grafana. And now you have a server monitoring dashboard, for example. So now you can see live data coming through, for example, your memory usage, your CPU load over time, your, current CPU load, alert table. So you can see values, anything that you have there. But how are we using those? So you can simply go here, for example, memory usage, and you can see that it is using the test topic. And of course, I have defined some sort of transformation to filter only the time and the metrics.mem.free, metrics.mem used. And of course, you can use any other transformations that Grafana supports. So thanks to this, you can have any data in your Grafana, into your Kafka. And after we add Avro and Protobuf support, you can have any kind of data, set even alert on them, and have the Kafka data into your Grafana. Perfect. Okay, I'm done.
I guess you can also use it, this SQL expression that is a new feature of Grafana. So you can like pass the JSON to the next query, and then it acts like a MySQL based syntax, and you figure it's like that. Oh, thank you. Oh, that's why. Okay. Yeah. So I guess so if you go to the panel settings, I can
going through a panel setting.
Yes.
Yes.
And then in the queries, you set the data source as mixed. No. Don't add anything. Yes. Thank you. And then the second, the B, so you can set it.
This is Grafana version 11. Is it released in version 12?
I guess it's 12. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I can. Oh.
Yeah. So in Grafana version 12, you have the feature of the SQL expressions. So you basically can do anything with your data, and it doesn't matter where the data comes from. It's technically JSON, or you can convert it to JSON, and then you can pass it to the SQL expression, which is kind of MySQL based syntax, and you can just do any sort of transformation.
So we can do any transformation.
The good thing
defining
is
them here.
So if you see here, so queries. So if you go to transformations, transformations only apply to dashboards in Grafana.
Yeah.
If you worked with Grafana before, you know that transformations don't apply to queries. They apply to dashboards.
Yeah.
So you don't have them in alerts or anything else. But with the SQL expressions, you can have complex transformations in the query, in the Grafana backend, and you have the like a perfect.
Yeah, because transformation are happening in the front end, so the query thing that's actually happening in the backend.
Exactly.
Perfect.
Exactly.
Nice.
And we are heavily using it in doing secondary detections, in alerting and such. So yeah.
Thank you for mentioning that. Perfect.
So it looks great, I would say. Right now, people are using Kafka and Kafka Viewer for viewing messages. Do you have any plan of implementing some kind of schema registry for messages?
Actually, I can show you. Okay. So now if I go here, this feature will come very, very soon. And you could see it in Kafka, in Grafana very, very soon. Here, you can define the schema register URL.
This is perfect.
Yeah.
It will be really good.
Yes. And then I will show you this now. If you go to your dashboard, so for example, I have here, I'm going to produce some messages into Avro topic schema. And I'm going to, yes, produce this one. And then you can see that I have Avro topic
nice.
schema, can find it. And if it's JSON, it would, of course, not able to consume it. And if it's schema register, you can test the connection. And now you have the Avro data.
Great. So you have support for it. Nice. So one more question.
Yeah.
This would be amazing to have both Explore Kafka in Grafana. Regarding the Scram credentials, how do you store them, and how do you store them?
Actually, all the credentials in Grafana, actually, the things are the sensitive data are handled by Grafana itself.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the OAuth bearer token, would that work for the like a managed Kafka cluster in AWS or something?
OAuth bearer.
Yeah.
Yeah. For now, we are only supporting Scrum, and we are not supporting OAuth bearer. But this is one of the things that I'm going to add in the future, in the near future. Yes, as well as Karbasi.
I guess Amazon MSK only supports.
No, they have
Yeah.
SaaS, yeah, and then they have this IAM as well. But
well, first of all, thanks you for developing it. Very, very, very cool product. And my question is, I mean, now and then it's open source as well, so the entire community can use it. Like, have you heard of any cool use cases that other companies are using this for? Anything you like in particular?
Once I just heard from one of the Grafana guys that in terms of business or B2B, I heard that Bank of America was using it. But in terms of stats, just know that I just saw the number of downloads was more than 2 million. But I don't know. Nobody has actually come to me and said, okay, I'm using this for this thing. Yeah, this is the only stats that I see in the Grafana backend when I'm developing, but I don't know what that's.
So what has been the most frustrating part of developing a Grafana plugin?
E2E tests, maybe.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes you play right. Yes, it's really annoying when you want, and especially when it's going to be from version to version. So sometimes for version 10, something is support. In version 12, something is added or supported, which is not supported in version 10. But of course, thanks to Grafana UI, I guess there was something like UI components that was released. But besides the UI test, I would say everything was good. I mean, when I submit it for review, it will be perfectly fast to be actually released. But I can't say that's maybe different case. But of course, one of the things is maybe TypeScript, because I'm not mainly, my knowledge is mainly deep in Golang and Python, not in TypeScript. So sometimes TypeScript might be a pain in the neck, but overall it was pretty good. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's just one. As if you want to develop a Grafana plugin and do end-to-end testing, there are two ways to test compatibility. One is a project I don't remember the name of. It's called like Grafana plugin compatibility something.
Yeah, I'm now using it in my CI.
Exactly. So that shows you exactly what's wrong and the difference in messages
and this is things developed now is really, really good, because back in the days there were nothing of those, but now those things really help actually in CI for the developers. Yeah.
Yes. And as for the like, if you're into like front-end testing, I guess you can use synthetic monitoring of K6 and also XK6 browser, which is built into K6, so you can write scripts. Or there is another new tool called K6 Studio. You can just use it, just browse into wherever you want in Grafana. It will record it as a script, and then you can play it back in your tests, and you will have everything.
Perfect.
And one more thing I just wanted to bring up. I also developed something for Kafka almost 6 years ago. It's called XK6 Kafka. If you search it.
Sure.
Thanks.
XK6.
It's not about me. It's about you. XK6.
XK6. Okay.
Yes. Dash. Yeah. I mean.
So it's
yeah. So if you ever want to test Kafka, or if you want to produce messages to later be consumed by his plugin in Grafana, you can use this project. And
so thanks to cases, of course, it could be for load testing even Kafka. Yeah.
Exactly. And you can, instead of producing with a script, you can just produce.
Nice.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. In any format you want. Yes.
I got it. Perfect. And it
Thank you.
supports the schema register too. Yeah. Perfect.
Thank
you. Thank you.
Thanks. Anyone? Any other question? Thoughts, concerns, feedback?
Yeah. All right. So at Grafana, we usually have hackathons, internal hackathons, 3 to 4 times per year. And they can be quite fun, and sometimes even useful stuff comes out of them. And that could be stuff that improves the user experience, or maybe makes us save money. That's always good for a business, right? And sometimes, projects can just be a little bit of fun. I doubt we're going to save much money with this MIDI streaming data source. And if you have no idea what this title means, you will know what it means at the end of this presentation. So this was a hackathon project between me and my colleague Mark. And yeah, we'll talk a little bit about it.
Yeah, hackathon projects at Grafana sometimes become Grafana projects. Like, for example, Loki was a hackathon.
Yeah, and then we also have like the more recently drill down apps.
Drill down or Grafana Assistant and so on and so forth. Equal expressions, thank you.
We have a lot of fun projects that end up actually being used, etc. And why can't I see my, get the next slide? There we go. So what can you use Grafana for? We're gonna do a little bit of show of hands here. Who here uses Grafana to monitor their IT infrastructure? Yeah, quite a lot of people. That's nice. And who here uses it for like BI stuff, KPIs and such? Okay, not as many. What about your cloud costs? Oh, yeah, a couple of those. They're probably very fun to look at, I bet. And how many here use Grafana for music? No one. I'm a little bit disappointed, to be honest. But here's a dream of mine, right? This is my dream for 2028. Grafana is the most popular digital audio workstation. And we will have sampling, synthesizing, mixing, you name it. And we will tap into the creator economy and have data-driven music with A/B mix testing. With AI, with AI for sure. And Grafana is disrupting the music production industry. That's like 2028 for me. And of course, the expansion into music production for Grafana is going to double our total addressable market. So this is something you definitely want to buy into, right? And this is a dream of mine, but we kind of have to start small. So let's start with a little bit of a recipe. We have built this plugin during a hackathon, and we basically used RxJS and the Web MIDI API on the front end, and we added some piano and drum samples. And we used the Tone.js library to manage both MIDI input and play samples. And very important here, I'm saying this because I'm doing a live demo, okay? Things may not go so well. Hackathon quality coding, there are most definitely bugs. And we can see this as a seed of a dream, or like the first mix of a cake that might not taste very well, but it kind of works. Yeah. So where do we kind of start with this then? We got to understand the data. What kind of data are we getting? We are going to look at how we're getting data through streaming, just like the Kafka plugin. And we're going to look at kind of the data structure and what kind of data we get from a MIDI keyboard and how we then integrate that into Grafana. So it's going to be a little bit technical. So this streaming data source, if you haven't used the Kafka one, maybe you want to look into some other ones. You have other use cases, etc. So you make sure that your data source supports it. And if you want to know how to implement one of these, go and read the docs on Grafana Live. That's quite nice. I have some examples here that doesn't include Kafka. So Loki or MQTT supports streaming out of the box. And I thought I'd just share with you how this might look. So we start with adding a visualization, and I'm going to use this test data we have. And here I can actually choose a scenario, which is a streaming. So this just outputs random data. And up to the left here, you can see this little dot, which shows that we are actually streaming data. It's not updating. It's because it's last 6 hours. Time range, let's do like one minute. Now minus 1 minute. Yeah, we kind of see it update as it publishes values. And so you can also see the whole time series kind of moves as we publish these values. And what you can do as well, because if we don't publish values, this time series doesn't move. So we have this setting, which is called refresh live dashboards, which will make these move continuously. And you can see it's a little bit smoother, so it moves even when we're not receiving data. So yeah, this is a little bit of an introduction to kind of how you might see or use streaming in a dashboard. Now, for the MIDI format, you're probably wondering what does MIDI even mean? It's short for musical instrument digital interface. A couple of decades old standard. It's possible to use music stuff with computers. So what kind of data do we receive? You can receive a lot of different kinds of data, but these are the ones we are basically interested in, like a status. So it may deliver a message which says they're on or off. It says which note it can be, from 0 to 127. And this could also doesn't have to be a note. If you use a drum, etc., you can have some kind of mapping there as well. And also the velocities, like how hard did you press the keyboard. And then we need to take this data and get it into Grafana somehow. So what we do is we create new columns, which has the name of a note in this case, as I'm using a MIDI piano. So we create a field with a note name. And then we push to this field the velocity and the timestamp at when it happens. And then we listen for the off event, or when velocity is 0, and then we set the value to null. So here we kind of have the mapping. So for example, if you get number 21, that maps to the note A0. Or here we have an example of how the actual data frame may look. So 1 second ago, you pressed C3 and you kept it pulled down until now. And while you did that, you also pressed C#3, just a little bit shorter and a little bit harder. So, all right, now we're going to do some live demo on this, how we're going to visualize this MIDI data. So what I'm always trying to do when I first work with new panels is to kind of understand the data formats. We've kind of dove in a little bit into that. And I'm going to use the state timeline panel to work with this. So let's see how this go. Maybe, who knows? So maybe we can remove this panel. And what we do is add a new visualization. And this time let's start with changing the data source to our MIDI input data source. And here we can select this is the key station that I'm using. And it's asking me if I want to use my microphone, because now it's going to start to listen on stuff. I'm also going to show how we use the microphone with this. So if I then, we get some sound, but this is the time series panel, so it looks kind of shit. So then we use the state timeline. This is usually a panel that's good for like visualizing state over time, like a system state, if everything is okay or we have an error or whatever. So what I have here, I'm gonna just reduce these so we don't get so many fields showing down to about there. Then I can push the button, become a little bit bigger. And you're probably wondering, what's this 80+ thing here? That doesn't make any sense, right? Well, it turns out that by default, we have this kind of thresholds set. So what does this mean, 80+ threshold? So what we want to do is change this color scheme. So I would probably go for like blue yellow. Then we get, when press softly, that wasn't soft enough apparently. Soft, we get a 5, that's a blue. And then if we, hard one, 127, we get a red one. Then we see a little bit of art. We can play guitar here in Grafana, almost. So yeah, that's a little bit of this one. I do think if I can also change to have these drums. So yeah, this doesn't make much sense here on this keyboard, but the guy I developed this with, Mark, he actually has a MIDI connected drum. So he sat there and just played drums in Grafana. That was a pretty cool feeling, to be honest. Spotify is dead, yeah. So what more do I have? Well, I also added kind of microphone input. So the data is a little bit different here. We kind of do a fast Fourier transform on the data and get this intensity into frequency buckets. So we can kind of configure the size there as well. And in terms of panels we want to use, here you can use something like a bar gauge in order to see the instant levels. And you can use a heat map to see more of a spectrogram across time. Let's see if we can manage to do that live. I'm actually gonna, I know there are some bugs somewhere, so I'm just gonna create a new dashboard, which is this one. Okay, gotcha. I'm gonna save this and then throw it away. New dashboard. Okay, add visualization. So we're doing the same, choose MIDI input. This time we choose a microphone. And same here, we kind of get the time series. Probably doesn't tell us a lot.
Maybe not.
I don't know. How much did it? 6 hours? Yeah, quite useful. So let's do like the last minute or so. So here's the time series panel. This is also a case where you need to understand what the data looks like. So we can press this table view. And here we see these frequency buckets and also the timestamps of these. And most of these values are kind of low, kind of quiet. So this is in decibel, so it's negative. And that means we probably want to have a look at, what did I say, bar gauge. This is the one. And then you can, where's my microphone? Hello. I'm not sure wherever my microphone is on. To the left of the keyboard. Is it here? Yeah, it's here somewhere. Yeah, cool. So yeah. We can see this frequency. We can also determine the range here. So we don't care about 8 kilohertz. So we go down to like 4 or something just to get, I don't know, a little bit of clearer data. And we probably want to do like a similar thing as we did with the last one here as well. We don't want colors from thresholds. We will probably go with the same one. It kind of looks a little bit more soundy, which is the technical term, I suppose. Yeah, so let's try this. If I whistle, what will happen? So yeah, we get it as at different frequencies. It's kind of fun to look at. I guess still have to kind of figure out the use cases for this, but it's fun. It's fun for sure. And yeah, then we can also go for the heat map. And now we're super confused because we just had a lot of data show up and suddenly it doesn't show up. And it turns out that there is a default setting for the heat map that we hide cells with values below like 10 to the 9th. Yeah, so slightly above 0, but all our values are negative. If we put this to like minus 200, we get this. And also, I think we have to do the same thing here with the colors. Let's do spectral. Yeah, this is more like it. And you can kind of see where I'm talking more loudly. And this is also the case where you can increase the FFT size to kind of see more things happen. So let's do 256 maybe. Then we get smaller buckets, but a more clear view on what's happening here. And yeah, if we also do the whistle test here. Yeah, no, this is amazing stuff happening here. You think so? Okay. Oh yeah, this is a huge market opportunity. Yeah. So yeah, this is kind of what we've got here. And as I said, the code we've written for this is very much hackathon quality, which means we don't have it approved in so you can download it and try it yourself, unfortunately. Which I assume that when you went home, you would probably do immediately if it was possible. Someone will pay for it. So yeah, hopefully, even though you might not be too familiar with music, etc., maybe you got some insight into how to edit panels and like some of the options we look at, and maybe I showed you some dashboard or visualization feature that you didn't know of. I got a short introduction to kind of how the MIDI format looks like, and how we map that to a data frame in Grafana. And hopefully it made you a little bit curious about trying to write your own plugin. And, maybe it doesn't have to be too serious. And hopefully by writing a plugin for Grafana, you might be able to realize your dream for 2028. Thanks a lot. All right.
You see?
Are there any questions or something of the sort, or everything's crystal clear?
Thanks. Is the repo public? The hackathon repo?
No, it's not. Maybe we should make it public.
Yes, please. Thank you.
You don't make a real product like this open source,
That's the spirit. Okay. Anyone else has any questions? If not, you can just come and ask me afterwards. I'll be hanging around and eat some pizza. So yeah.